स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयोः श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः। नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. So we are in the chapter Sadhana and Ecstasy. Then we'll take up the story of the first 4 years of sadhana. Very appropriately, we have come to this place क्योंकि ये रामकृष्ण शारदा विवेकानंद जो परंपरा की विशेषता, स्पेशलिटी is in this idea of sadhana. See, आप भी देखे होंगे, there are so many places where people run constantly क्योंकि यहाँ यही मिल रहा है, वहाँ वही मिल जा रहा है. I was surprised. I recently came across a big group in Gurgaon itself where they gather regularly because they are getting whatever they want. तो ठाकुर के पास आने में तो whatever you want तो नहीं मिलेगा, जो भी है वो भी ले लेंगे. ये मुश्किल है, इसलिए I don't know how many will come to ठाकुर, इसलिए संख्या में इतना कम है. So it has been very clear from the beginning, from Sri Ramakrishna onwards, at least up to now, the emphasis has been only on sadhana because we have nothing to show. मान लीजिए 125 साल स्वामी जी और डायरेक्ट डिसाइपल्स के बाद, in the next generations onwards, we had only one Swami Ranganathan ji who was an outstanding speaker. बहुत सारे लोग कंडक्ट करते हैं, मैं भी प्रवचन करता हूँ, but he was a very acclaimed, internationally acclaimed speaker. In nowadays we have one Sarvpriyananda who is completely dominating the YouTube. But लेकिन this is never our unique proposition. विशेषता ही नहीं है, हम लोग की विशेषता एकदम चुपचाप ऐसे. मान लीजिए someone like, if you take from the Thakur and Mother Swamiji, वो तो never ever gave any lecture or anything. माँ भी बिल्कुल नहीं है. Swamiji was clearly mandated by Thakur himself to give lecture. वो नहीं देना चाहते थे, वो करना ही है. Your bones will teach. So he commanded him. He had no other choice. बहुत प्रयास किया उससे निकलने के, निकल नहीं पाया. He was really made to run till he really dropped dead. अंत तक he had to be like that. So जबरदस्ती उनको करवाया. Someone else started with all that kind of mandate. Although we have huge lectures, they are not making any such impact at all. So in the next generation also, there was nobody. Virjanjandra, they were known for the deeply intense sadhana. रात बैठते थे, सुबह कि अगले दिन शाम तक बैठते, ऐसे ऐसे सुना. Virjan ji, 6 months used to stay in Chamlata, 6 months here. मैं पहले आपके अंदर कहीं सुने होंगे जो, because I have referred to it earlier also. So एक दिन उनको सुबह श्यामलातल में 3:30 बजे ऐसी चाय देने की एक प्रथा था. The secretary would Seva would give him black tea. 3:30 बजे देखे ना, हमारा ध्यानस्थ चुपचाप वापस आ गए. 7 बजे टिफिन की घंटी बजा, महाराज वही अवस्था में, कोई हिलजुल नहीं. फिर दोपहर प्रसाद के समय देखा, सेम कंडीशन. इवनिंग 3:30 चाय की समय सेम. 7 बजे महाराज आसपास आ खोल के बोल रहे, कोई मेरे तो चाय नहीं दी आप लोग. महाराज क्या बोल रहे हैं, अभी शाम 7 बजे. अरे रखो तुम लोग को सुबह शाम, कल रात में जंगला सब बंद कर रहा था, देखा इतना बरसात हो रहा, उसके साथ विद्युत चमक रहा है, बस बैठ गया. नाइट ऑनवर्ड्स टिल इवनिंग 7. That is our tradition. If you have to go there. लोग एक बार कहाँ रांची न कहाँ ले गए, कहाँ से बहुत ही प्रयास करके एक जुगाड़ किया था. उससे तो वीडियो तो बहुत ही रिकॉर्डिंग को मिल रहा था. किसी वक्त महाराज स्वामी जी का 1000 पार कुछ दिखाएंगे। हाँ दिखा, बैठ गए। तो जैसे कल पार का पहले कुछ दिखा, एक तस्वीर, 2-3 मिनट, बस उसके साथ गड़बड़। बहुत प्रयास करे, 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा हो गया, कुछ भी नहीं हो। साहब बहुत लजे, महाराज क्या हुआ, हम लोग कितना प्रयास किया, कोई। मैं तो आप जब भी 1000 पार्क बोला, मैं तो चले गए। Because all the time, 1.5 hours, he was only in 1000 park. He never bothered about what was being shown. See, that is, if you really want to be deeply immersed, embedded in this tradition, develop that. बोलना बोलना कुछ नहीं है, जितनी, see, I always say that what people talk about lecture, Swamiji, when he went to London and he came back, he said, my London work is very stable. The Britishers, once they take up something, they never give up. ऐसे से बोले। दूसरी बार जब गए, there was not even a crow to receive him. We had to come all the way from Ireland to receive him. Nobody, totally washed away. If that can happen, where Swamiji had stayed and preached, what to speak of others, better not to take names at all. But among those, even those who went to Thousand and Park, if you read their reminiscences, you were in tears, you were in ecstasy. How much they understood, because he spoke in very cryptic kind of language, Swamiji. I also read Thousand Park. It's not a very lucid kind of text. But those who were there, they felt transformed because, sitting and meditating with Swamiji in such a place. So that is our tradition. If you really want to know Ramakrishna Sharda tradition, you must know how to do sadhana, how to dive deep. All everything else is absolutely irrelevant and doesn't matter at all. So naturally, again and again, you can just confine yourself to those areas because ultimately, this ultimate truth is Swasamvedya. It's known only to oneself. I can go on trumpet and say I'm a Brahmachari, I'm the most useless fellow. Nobody would know. I only would know. Because that is completely, totally subjective knowledge. Nothing to do with the objective world. 1,000 people may certify you are great. That doesn't matter. Who you are, you know. So this journey is completely an inward journey, a spiritual journey. If you do it, you are the beneficiary. And only one great saving factor is nothing goes waste. Whatever you do, slowly keeps accumulating. Slowly, slowly, slowly. You'll never know. Then when they cut the tree, they keep on cutting. Then suddenly they find that the whole huge stem or branch, I mean, huge diameter has been cut. Like that, slowly, imperceptibly it will grow. That's why in Gita also says, "Sarvamapasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat." Even a little of it will save you from a great fear. The fear of samsara, fear of death, fear of birth, fear of all that experience. So, the only way we can keep this tradition vibrant, alive, is by all of us becoming intense sadhakas in our own way. Otherwise, we can never contribute anything. We will only weaken the movement by our flippant and restless behavior. So there's no need. I find people are so excited about giving talks, giving lectures, informing everybody. No need at all. Who cares? Who is going to listen to you? Simply for a few minutes, they come like a variety entertainment. They come and sit and go. That's all. It's not going. Neither, rather that affects you because now you get bloated up, thinking that so many people have come and listened. Actually, it's harmful more to the speaker rather than see how self-effacing they were. There's a very great Swami in South, Tagishanji, such a great scholar. He simply started Gita, and I think for some 1.5 years or so, only the introduction was going on. Finally, Rupi said, Maharaj, when will you start actually? Then we start the first chapter onwards. I mean, such a great scholar. I mean, hundreds of references he can give to any sloka. Like. So he had a very wonderful beard, like, Virijan. He was also very, what you say, you always say lush green, you can say lush black beard here. And then, one foreign lady, she was so much, oh, Swamiji, I want to take a picture. Oh, acha, you come tomorrow. And he came completely clean shaven. Yes, take it. So they were so self-effacing. That was a tradition. There was a so in a subsequent generations also. So when great Swami lived for many years in France, he also did a lot of work in Brazil. Uh, Half of the time he used to be in Brazil because Brazil, they are kind of very devoted people. So then practically he was not at all a speaker at all. But they would change lives because in spirituality, it's like one lamp lighting another lamp. दिया दूसरी दिया की जला रहा है वैसे ही आप only a life can transform life, nothing else. That's why they say so much. Thakur also talks about satsang, sadhusang. इसकी क्या अर्थ है? Live in the company of great people so that you think great things, great ideas. That way, there's no other goal, no other shortcut. Ultimately, one has to strive, struggle intensely by oneself. Then only one will get some idea of the higher levels of existence, consciousness, etc. So we saw last time how uh, slowly Thakur was completely going in a different direction. His method of puja was also very unorthodox. पहले खुद के कभी कभी खिला के फिर माँ के खिलाते थे ऐसे ऐसे तो बिल्ली की खिला देते थे. So still Mother was saying no, let him do in his own way because he saw the Divine Mother was really being awakened by an exceptional pujari. लेकिन वो जब रानी रासमणी के थप्पड़ मारा वो भी थोड़ा हिल गए क्योंकि who will dare slapping Rani in the temple itself in front of everybody? She came and sat because she used to love Sri Ramakrishna's not only puja, he's singing. So she would always request and Thakur would sing because she was a great devotee of Mother Kali, no doubt. Her symbol was like that. Rani Rasmani, Dasi of Mother Kali. That's the symbol she would use. That for the stamping and all that. And Maharaja कहते हैं. Then she was sitting, suddenly she was thinking about one lawsuit. हाँ, यहाँ बैठ के ऐसे करके she gave a slap. So the whole sub हिल गए. And Mathur thought that maybe he's a mixture of divinity and madness. Mother also started doubting. So then, he was thinking, Mathur somehow managed the worship service blessing the master until he was absorbed in the state. But now Mathur decided to make separate arrangements for worship as the master was no longer capable of handling it. I mean, he did not doubt his devotion or his intensity or seriousness. वो तो कुछ भी नियम रख नहीं पा रहे. After all, the temple was also becoming more known. People were coming. So obviously, normal people can't understand. So that's why, in all our pujas also, pujaris are strictly instructed. Don't get into Baba Samadhi, etc. Do it properly in time because so many children, so many others, some people, they keep on doing till they finish all the pujas. And maybe 100 pujas have to be there, particularly in Durga Puja, certain days. And they finish at 2, 2:30. No. And senior puja used to always give bhoga, etc. at the right time by 12. So many women, children will all be waiting without taking food. Your puja is not important. Cut short. You can make it short also if you want. So that finishing in time. And that Swami was pujari in Beliment for 4 decades or 5 decades. His words, not ordinary people. He was considered the biggest authority on puja. So, but still, some norms have to be kept. So finally he thought that kya kare. Then another reason Mathur made the decision. One day the intoxicated master suddenly got up from the worshipper's seat and saw Mathur and myself in the temple. He took my hand and made me sit on that seat, then told Mathur, from today Hriday will perform the worship. खुद ही उन्होंने बोल दिया, then माथुर का था तो बोलना कुछ नहीं फिर. Mother says she will accept his worship as she would my own. He put the further seal of authority, saying that I am ऐसे कोई व्यवहारिक दृष्टि से नहीं बोल रहा हूँ. माँ की आदेश है. Mothers dictate that she would accept his worship as if I were doing it. The devout mother accepted the master's words as command from the mother. We do not know how true Hriday's words are, but we do know that Mother completely understood that under such conditions it was impossible for the master to conduct the daily worship. Of course, Maharaj gives, the Hriday can't rely too much on his words, but whatever he said, this much is true. We have already mentioned that Mathur was drawn to the master from his first sight of him. From that point on, he made all efforts to keep the master in the Lakshmi removing all his difficulties. जो भी उनका दिक्कतियां आ रही थी, he would always go out of the way to solve all the problems so that he is kept at Dakshineshwar. And served him according to his needs and protected him from the oppression of others. As time passed, the more he became acquainted with the master's wonderful qualities, the more he was charmed by them. कि पहले तो इतना पहचान नहीं था, लेकिन जब देखने लगे, whenever he would come, whenever he saw, it was same. It was not that only once Ramakrishna exhibited something. Whenever he would come, whenever he saw him, whether it's a temple or elsewhere, the same ecstasy, the same extraordinary bliss emanating from his face. So obviously he was completely charmed. And he was also sure that if he is not careful, others will criticize and even drive him out. So he made sure nothing happened. He arranged for a daily drink of rock candy syrup, mystery, of the master, knowing his system and excess humor of wind. When under the influence of supreme devotion, the master became involved in an unusual method of worship. The master protected him from criticism and persecution. He mentioned some similar instance elsewhere. दूसरी जगह भी कुछ उल्लेख किया इस सबके लिए. However, presume that on the day the master struck Rani Rasmani in order to instruct her, Mathur began doubting him and concluded that he had become insane. ये तो ऐसे कोई थप्पड़ कौन मारेगा? तो बोल सकते थे धीरे धीरे, अरे ऐसे मत करो, मारा क्यों? हाथ उठाया, वो उनका संदेह आ गया. It seems that the incident made Mathur suspect there was a combination of spirituality and insanity in the master. Because at that time, he arranged for the master to be treated by Kaviraj Ganga Prasad Sen, a prominent Calcutta physician. ठाकुर तो जहां ले जाते, अच्छा चलो डॉक्टर के पास आना, हाँ ठीक है जाओ चलो. So he had no will of his own. Wherever Mathur said, he did not mind being shown to 100 physicians also. So anyway, so he took him. Not only did Mathur arrange the master's treatment, he also tried his utmost to use reasoning, convince the master to control his mind, and then proceed with the spiritual practices. Imagine Mathur trying to control Thakur by saying that you must control your mind. After dhire dhire karna, itna mat karo. He admitted complete defeat, and the master showed him a white hibiscus on the branch of a red hibiscus tree. He was saying, the discussion in this will in detail be elsewhere. There was something like that, God has, regarding God's will, God has created something like that. And can there be this thing? I think Thakur said something, he can break his own laws. Then I think Mathur asked him, is it possible then in a red hibiscus tree a white flower will come? The next day morning, while walking in Ramakrishna saw, he broke that branch and showed him. He was completely stunned, Mathur, how it's possible. See, you can read this Leela Prasanga in several ways. There are several such incidents. Although Sri Ramakrishna completely abhorred any miracle, any such thing, he instructed all his disciples also. Once he asked Swamiji, If you want, I can give you the Ashtasiddhis. स्वामी जी बोले उससे क्या होगा? नहीं, आपका प्रचार वगैरह अच्छा कर पाओगे. No, no, no. Will it give me God realization? No, I don't want it. Let me first realize God, then I will see all that. So it has always been, we have never in the tradition encouraged, or if anyone says a little, then immediately you'll be asked to consult a doctor. That's the first thing. Uh, that is a prescription which is given. If anyone speaks some such language, immediately is referred to a physician. So, कुछ दवाई दे दो भाई, कुछ गड़बड़ है. So naturally, but you know, there are so many incidents here. You'll find that during a sadhana, the manifestation of some extraordinary signs. So one can say, "Oh, how is it all possible? This and that." We need not even look at all that. If you believe that, that's why See, that is why there are several traditions in our Hindu system. Tomorrow also we will possibly discuss some of these. See, according to the bhakti system, the whole thing in bhakti, it hinges on faith. And the problem is lack of faith. So the more and more you trust God, more and more you do accordingly, according to bhakti. And the idea is, at the higher and higher levels, God's grace descends on you. Then you experience higher states of spiritual awareness, consciousness, realizations, etc., etc. So, if you are a true bhakta, if you are devoted, these things will not bother you at all. You know that if you believe that, see, according to the uh, bhakti school or tradition, we believe the world is created with God. If God can create the world, He can create a few weird things also. What is the problem in God creating that? Is it not? If you find a cow with two heads, even now we see. Then if Sri Ramakrishna's backbone was extended a little like a tail, we need not lose our head over debating whether it's possible or not. No need. One thing is, if you're deeply devoted, everything you will simply absorb without this. But if you are otherwise also, need not. Leave all that. Leave whatever. See his intense life of sadhana. See his tyaga. He is this unprecedented. These things are enough for us. It is not, if some of those details are this thing for you. Because those details are not given to impress anybody or to eke out any concession or any belief or any benefit or anything. They're simply being, Satma clearly says, whatever it is, I have to faithfully recount what I have found finally. So he, without any fear or favor, he keeps giving all that. So like that, we have very, very, very rarely one might have seen like that. Whether you have seen also like this in a red hibiscus tree, a white flower appearing in the same tree is the rarest of rare occurrence. But if Prakriti is all God's, he can really slightly tweak it to bring such a thing. What's the problem there? We already mentioned that Mathu realized it was not possible for the master to continue the daily worship of the goddess, so he made a separate arrangement. During this time, Ram Tarak Chattopadhyay, a cousin of the master's, arrived at the Dakshineswar temple in search of work. Mathur engaged him to perform worship of Kali until the master recovered. This happened in 1858. So, somebody heard, अरे वो तो दक्षिणेश्वर में सब बहुत ही वहाँ सबको मिल रहा है, चलो चलो करके वो आ गया. The master used to call, see, 1855 or so was the temple consecrated. 56, for the few months he didn't come also. In 1856 he must have began his, this saga of sadhana. And by 58 he was already in such a condition. Imagine the intensity. The master used to call Ram Tarak by the nickname Haladhari. We have heard many stories about him from the master. Haladhari was a great scholar as well as a strict and devout aspirant. Every day he would study the Bhagavata, the Adhyatma Ramayana and other scriptures. Haladhari was drawn to Lord Vishnu, but he had no aversion to the Divine Mother. So although he was a devotee of Vishnu, at Mathur's request, he took over the worship service of the Divine Mother. वो भी नौकरी करने के लिए आया. पंखा मिलेगा बस चलो लग जाओ. With Mathur's consent, Aladari took groceries from the temple store and cooked his own meals every day. रोज अपना खुद ही पका लेता था. Mathur objected first, asking, "Why do you want to cook for yourself? Your cousin Ramakrishna and nephew Hriday eat prasad for the temple." ये दोनों तो तुम्हारा क्या है? तुम तो वही जात से क्या दिक्कत है? वो सीधा बोल दे. The intelligent Haladari replied, "My cousin is in an exalted spiritual state. He can do as he likes, but I have not reached that state and I must obey my caste rules." क्योंकि it was a मेषनी का बनाया हुआ मंदिर था. It was a low caste woman. So obviously the Brahmin cannot and all that. All kinds of beliefs. But he clearly said, because no, for him it was just only a ritual. It was not that, see, that the whole difference is, when you, if anything, see, uh, Nagmashai was such adherent of truthfulness. So he became so great. Thakur, got that one idea. So, his father he was a doctor, actually, qualified homeopath. His father said, "What is this here? What are you going to do? How will you live? Then you have to only eat a dead frog." He went and searched a dead frog and took it. Because he didn't want his father's words to be falsified. Imagine the level of, the conviction and the shraddha and the power to adhere to truth. I mean, one can't even imagine how it is possible. He was like that. Such a great soul, really. When you come to Mutt, all would, even later time, after in the Baradagur Mutt, etc., everyone would run to do pranam. And he would run, he would not allow. It was a big fight going on like that. Because they all had so much respect for him. You would be completely in a different mood and bhava when you used to go and see the Walima, that if you read those, you'll be moved to tears. When he was such. Mother also could not even feed him. She tried. It was simply mother, and she was shedding profusely tears and took that prasad and he was rubbing it all over his head. And when she gave in a little leaf plate, she took everything, including the leaf, like that. But he was very exceptional. So, he clearly says, "I don't belong to that category, so I have to cook my own food." Mathur was pleased by this response. From then on, Haladari took groceries from the temple store and cooked his own food under the Panchavatam. Although Haladari was not against mother worship, he did not approve of making any animal sacrifice to the goddess. तो बलि होता था नियमित हुआ. As it was customary in the Dakshineshwar temple to offer animal sacrifice to Divine Mother during festivals, he could not perform the service with enthusiasm on those days. उस दिन उनका मन बहुत ही बुरा लगता था, ये क्या हो रहा है. It is said that Aladari continued the worship for a month, but with resentment. Many men ऐसे बुरा मान के वो पूजा कर रहे थे. Then one evening while he was meditating, the goddess appeared to him in a terrible form and said, "Do not worship me anymore. If you do, your son will die because of your lack of reverence." At first, he thought his mind had played a trick on him, so he paid no heed to that command. But shortly afterwards, Haladari received the news of his son's death. He then told the master the whole story and stopped worshipping Kali. Shakti Upasana, that's why they are very extremely careful. The Durga Puja, Kali Puja and all, people do it very carelessly. That's why so much of evil befalls them. There are all great traditions behind these worships. Very elaborate ritualistic details. If you do it, you do. Otherwise, personally, you simply sit and meditate in your room on mother, that's okay. But if you start a ritualistic worship, that has to be done very properly. Otherwise, it can be very harmful. was then arranged that Hriday would perform the divine mother's worship, and then Haladari would worship Radha Govinda. This story we heard from Raja Ram, Hriday's brother. So this is why I know about this. Also he says, I have relied on three kinds of evidences. One is what I have myself seen with my own eyes. The other is what I have heard from the contemporaries of Sri Ram, those who have lived during his time and have seen him and met him and from. And third is, I think, probably from very reliable sources of subsequent generations who have heard it from others. Which is all the three have used here. Then we go to the story of the first 4 years of sadhana, because it's a very, very, very important period. Because the as long as the toughest period of Sri Ramakrishna was till he had the first vision of the Divine Mother. Afterwards, just like that, everything happened. Only 3 days for anything, any sadhana, anything would require only 3 days. Because by the time he had really reached such a stage, it was possible for him to dive deep into anything, any tradition, the moment he hears it. I often say it's like, uh, learning a computer language. First time, the first language is extremely difficult. Because computer language is a very specific, special logic of its own. It's also built on a logic, but logic is very, very special. But once you master that, any program you can learn very easily because you know the logic in which the language is written. Then details can be easily absorbed. So like that, when he made the first breakthrough, afterwards it was so easy for him because he had got the real secret of penetrating into the area of transcendence. कैसे इस सब के पार कैसे जाना, अतीन्द्रिय जगत में कैसे प्रवेश करना, वो सब पता कर लिया उन्होंने. Then afterwards it was very easy for him to learn and get into other traditions, etc. If you want to study the period of Sri Ramakrishna sadhana, we must first remember what he told us about himself. Then it will not be difficult to determine the chronology of events. क्योंकि शरद मास तो ठाकुर के पास तो कई साल रहा किए हैं, उस समय उन्होंने बहुत कुछ सुना था. So he says, let us first rely on what Sri Ramakrishna himself used to say. We have already mentioned that the master had told us that for 12 years he was absorbed continuously in the sadhana of various faiths. 12 साल तक उनको बहुत ही करना पड़ा. However, now according to the deed of gift for Rani Rasmani's temple endowment, the Dakshineshwar Kali temple was consecrated on Thursday, 31st May 1855. A few months after that, the master assumed the office of priest. So it is certain that his sadhana was performed from 1856 to 1867. However, although those 12 years have been determined to be the period of his sadhana, we see that he practiced some spiritual disciplines even afterwards when he visited holy places and when he returned to Dakshineshwar. The first 12 years was really the cream or the most intense period of his sadhana. Obviously, afterwards, क्या कर रहे थे? अब तो कुछ करना नहीं है. To be in that bhava only, and now and then dive deep into that state. We shall divide those 12 years into 3 parts, each part separately. Discuss each part separately. We have already discussed the main events that occurred during the first 4 years, from 1856 to 1859. The second 4-year span was from 1860 to 63. During the last 2 years of this period, the master practiced spiritual disciplines under the guidance of Bhairavi Brahmani, from Gokul Vrata to 64 main tantric disciplines that are prevalent in Bengal. The third 4-year period covers 1864 to 67. During this period, the master was initiated into Ram Mantra by Jatadhari, a Ramite monk, and received the image of Ramlala. He wore women's clothes for 6 months in order to attain perfection in Madhura Bhava in accordance with Vaishnava Tantra. He also received monastic vows from Totapari and attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Finally, he received instruction in Islam from Govinda. So this is the 12 years up to that he had completed. During the 12 years of his sadhana, the master also became acquainted with the Sakhya Bhava according to the Vaishnava Tantra and the disciplines of Karta Bhaja, Navarasik, and other subsidiary Vaishnava sects. The master was quite familiar with various denominations of Vaishnavism, as is clear from the fact that Vaishnavacharan Goswami and other aspirants of those sects came to him for spiritual guidance. This was the beauty. Whenever anything was to be added to the to Sri Ramakrishna's repertoire of these sadhanas, that person will come seeking. And finally, he will go being instructed by Sri Ramakrishna himself and course correction लेके वापस चले जाते थे. Everybody. Guru would take something, but give much more and correct his own defects and send him. When we divide the period of the master's sadhana into three parts, we see precisely that each period is distinguished by a particular form of spiritual discipline that he practices. 4-7 साल के अंदर कुछ विशेषता आप हर तीनों में आपका मिलेगा. We have seen that the only external help he had at the beginning of his sadhana was the initiation he received from Kenaram Bhattacharya. पहला 4 साल में उनका कुछ भी बाहर का सहायता कुछ नहीं मिला. केनाराम भट्टाचार्य क्यों? जब उनका माँ काली का पूजा वगैरह करने जरूर पड़ा, he realized that one can't do it without taking a formal initiation. इसलिए उन्होंने बेसिक से पता करके he was a very pious person, केनाराम भट्टाचार्य से उन्होंने मंत्र दीक्षा लिए थे. That was the only little help. His innermost longing for God realization was his mainstay during his period. Soon that longing grew more intense and greatly affected his body and mind. His longing brought immense love for his chosen deity, and gradually it led him along the path of Raga Bhakti, transcending the regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti. That longing allowed him to finally have the direct vision of the Divine Mother and endowed him with yogic powers. So, actually, whether it's possible at all for someone to dive so deep into sadhana is a big question. It's very obvious that he was born with extraordinary tendencies and abilities. Otherwise, for a 17 or 18-year-old person to be immersed day and night into sadhana. You see, when you say hello? Hello. So, in 1856 and all, he was just 20 years. 1836 to 56, 20 years. For a 20-year person, ये थोड़ा बड़ा था. For a 20-year person to be immersed day and night into that kind of sadhana, and without any help or guru or guide, unbelievable. It's humanly not possible. But because he was, his very birth, very advent was to show the path to highest spiritual perfection. आध्यात्मिक जीवन में पूर्णता लाभ उसकी पथ दिखाने के लिए वो आए थे. So obviously it has to start somewhere. And it's also in the fitness of things. मान लीजिए आप ऐसे कोई गुरु, normally if a guru has to awaken in such intense way, आपका कैसे गुरु मिलना चाहिए? ऐसे गुरु कहाँ कैसे मिलेगा? संभव ही नहीं है. A guru endowed with such extraordinary powers as he himself exhibited, how was it possible to find a guru? Not possible at all. So obviously it didn't happen that way. But it happened the way it did because ultimately, if you see in this Ramakrishna tradition, आपकी आध्यात्मिक जीवन बहुत सहज सरल है. There's one reason why Sri Ramakrishna's advent is so important and so significant. क्योंकि आप इसका कुछ भी नहीं है. The intensity, व्याकुलता, आप जो पाना चाहते, whichever path you choose, even if you are not in the path of devotion also, even if you take the path of yoga, even if you take the path of Advaita, what really distinguishes Ramakrishna from all the other avatars and all other classical instances of sadhana in their tradition? लोग हिंदू धर्म के अनुसार कितनी बड़े बड़े महापुरुषों के साधकों की बात हम लोग सुने पढ़े, लेकिन उनका क्या विशेषता है? One new dimension he added to sadhana itself called व्याकुलता. क्योंकि आप ये भक्ति ट्रेडिशन में, भक्ति ग्रंथावली में भगवान के प्रति प्यार, and that kind of that feeling for feeling that I am separated from the Lord, वो सहन नहीं कर पाना, all those things are definitely not that they are totally new, but someone completely उसकी आधार पर इतनी ऊंचाई से पहुंचना, just on the basis of an intense व्याकुलता for God, उनका देख नहीं पा रहा हूं, अनुभव नहीं पा रहा हूं, that himself awakened the highest spiritual aspiration in his heart and led to the vision of the Divine Mother. That's something worth noting and practicing in a small way also. So ultimately, of course, in the existential world also, we see those who do it with tremendous intensity and passion, they only are able to execute many things. But the same thing in a spiritual world, to exhibit with that extraordinary level of intensity, where the only thing is that vyakulta, that longing for God, I think he has really put a stamp of authority and introduced it as a very, very special spiritual discipline. Of all other things, like in the Vaidhi Bhakti, in the Bhakti according to Vidhi. Vaidhi means according to Vidhi, according to the Shastras, according to rules and regulations. There is a normal. ये करना है, ये भोग चढ़ाना है, ये करना है, जप करना है, मंत्र, all those things. From there you go to the transition from Vaidhi to Raga. It's possible solely through this one discipline called Vyakulata, that intense longing for the vision or the Sannidhya, or the presence of the divine. That's something is very, very extraordinary, and that really has shown a new path, so to say. इसलिए आपका कुछ भी, so if you're in his disciples, you'll find such a variety. You have on the highest intellectual in the form of Swamiji, to the bilkul anpada atmi Latu Maharaj. Sri Ramakrishna failed to teach him even the alphabets. But how? He inherited this from the master. The same intensity, that love for God, the struggle, that really, that was a hallmark of Latu Maharaj's life also. So, by this he has clearly shown that you don't need anything. You don't need any qualification. You don't need any items of worship, samagri. You don't need any vidhi. You don't need anything. Just that feeling that I'm away from my beloved, the dearest of dear of my heart. I'm away from that. That kind of an intense feeling, that alone, if you pursue it consistently, and if you're possessed by that one idea day and night, that can lead you to the culmination of spiritual excellence. That's something Sri Ramakrishna has shown for mankind to emulate. So that way, he has made an extraordinary, very special contribution. So obviously, this is something worth really thinking deeply about and trying to understand what it is. Probably, as we read these texts, you will get more and more of such instances. How you could, same way, how you could just three days. Is it a matter of joke? That means what? The same amount of intensity which he put into get the first vision, the number of years, that thing in a condensed form, the same intensity with which he read it, and that is possible. So for the external onlookers or others, oh, तीन दिन में वो कर दिया, तीन दिन, it is not that. In 3 days, 3 years of that intensity. See how that, when he decides something, such a wonderful mind, it had become so prepared, and it is Islamic sadhana. He stopped going to mother's temple. His dearest mother, all his life, he said, मैं तो अमी चिरकाल मायर निर्भर बालक. I am ever dependent child of the mother. This is what he used to say. He stopped going to temple, stopped all Hindu rituals and this and that. And he would even brought a special Brahmin cook to cook for him the food according to Muslim Islamic tradition, putting a lot of onion, garlic, and this and that. Imagine, anything, the level of perfection to which he could do anything. And again, 3 days was enough for him. 64 tantras. I don't know how many can even practice in one's life. One after another, all the branches he finished. Even the most difficult ones. Mother said, no, aapko karna hai abhi. Then he would do. Some of the things he didn't really, he was horrified how to do all that. Nahi, karo tum, karna hai, main bol raha hu. Bas, immediately he will. See, for him, all sadhana was invitations to go into samadhi, that's all. Whereas Vaishnava, Tantra, or Sotapuri, or anybody, if you see all that, what is common? Anybody says something, he listens and goes into samadhi, that's all. So for him, afterwards, what is there? What is Vaishnava, or Tantra, or Saiva, or Shakta, or whatever it is? He was always in samadhi only. That was what he really did. So now he takes up another question. At that time, the master had already realized God and become perfect in yoga. What was left? Why did he continue to practice sadhana? Because he says, somewhere he says he got it, the first vision. Along with it, he also developed yogic powers. And he says, what was the need for further sadhana? Sardhanji himself is raising the question of the readers, and he would answer it. We'll take it up next time. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ram Krishna Namaste. Namaskar.